Let's welcome back the Powerhouse panel. Full panel back with us this morning. Mercedes Schlapp, Christopher Arps, Aaron Elmore, and Carl Higbee, a former Navy SEAL, a veteran, joining us this morning. Carl, again, thanks for your service. You know, I think that soundbite that you just heard, a great point was brought up. Right. We looked into Joe Biden, the 2007 version. This is back when he was still a senator from Delaware. He, along with Ted Kennedy, were kind of the liberal wing of the Democratic Party. Listen to what he said about. And at that time, he was running for president. Obama would go on to become president. He'd go on to be the vice president, but he was still running for the second time. He ran in '88, and he ran in 2008. He talked about withdrawing from Iraq and Afghanistan. And you got to listen carefully, but listen to what he said, how he would handle it if he were ever elected to the presidency. Take a listen.
I'm President of the United States. I issue an order. End the war today. Begin to withdraw all American troops. It will take a year to get the American troops out. Now, if you leave all the equipment behind, you might be able to do it in 7 months. And you leave those billions of dollars of weapons behind, I promise they're going to be used against your grandchild and mine someday.
Carl, you know, of course, on this Veterans Day, we're thinking about the 13 that lost their lives at the end of August unnecessarily, completely needlessly in Afghanistan. What do you make of comments like that? What has changed with the way Joe Biden governs?
Well, aside from that creepy getting in that woman's face trying to tell her.
That hasn't changed.
Yeah, that hasn't changed at all. You know, I'm so sick and tired of politicians saying, you know, coulda, woulda, shoulda, this is what I would do. He's like, it's in the arena. You know, like, this is a guy who has been in public office for, what, 5 decades? He's been on the wrong side of nearly every foreign policy issue ever. And my issue with this is we own the night as Americans because we have night vision, we have thermal, we have the technology to do it, and we just left it there. I mean, we were like, hey, Taliban, you want 16,000 pairs of night vision goggles? Sure, no problem. Black Hawk helicopters. You know, American citizens can't have AR-15s and 30-round magazines, but we'll leave 150,000 units for the Taliban. I mean, this is like the most haphazard administration when it comes to this overseas debacle that we had, because it wasn't just Afghanistan. Afghanistan was the epicenter of it, but it's rippled all over the Middle East right now with them getting back into this Iran deal they wanted to. I mean, it's just read a book, Joe Biden.
Mercy, 80 million Americans voted for Joe Biden in November of 2020. I think they thought they were getting that guy, that more moderate guy that we had, or at least heard from, back in 2007. Something has shifted. What do you think it is?
Well, I think that you saw those swing voters very much saying they didn't want, you know, there was so much going on between COVID and the panic that was caused and the lockdowns that happened. And the fact is that it became an anti-Trump election, right? So they were really honing in. The media, the big tech was spending a lot of money to make sure that Donald Trump didn't win. You know, it was creating this massive negative campaign against President Trump. And here you've got the guy in the basement who barely shows his face. So it's really, although people have known Joe Biden, you know, relatively for a long time as a politician, we didn't know when he could step on that, you know, national stage. He did it as vice president. That's a little different. But now as president, on how exactly he was going to lead. And what we have figured out, and we knew all along, is that he was going to line himself up with progressives because he's such a weakened president. And then when it comes to foreign policy, you look at the fact of every decision that he has made on foreign policy has been an absolute debacle. And I've got to tell you, it's buyer's remorse. The American people are looking at this saying, I didn't sign up for a weak president. Yeah, I didn't like the other guy's tweets, but I didn't sign up for this guy who's unfit and doesn't even answer questions from the press.
Chris, it's a good point. You talk about that $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill, which was passed 6 days ago. It passed on Friday night. So 13 Republicans in the House voted for it. And 4 of those, by the way, also voted for impeachment back in January, which I think is telling. But I almost think it's a masterclass. By having 13 vote for a bill that was already bipartisan in the Senate, 19 Republican senators voted for the same bill 92 days ago. I think by doing that, when these members of Congress go back to their districts, they can say, hey, listen, we're bipartisan. You know, this bill was going to pass anyway. We were a part of it. I think it was actually calculus. I think that was a move that was done deliberately. So the Democrats can't say, and look, we've got to do all of this on our own because Republicans are completely partisan. Not the case, but not the case with this $1.75 trillion bill.
Well, with this $1.75 trillion bill, it's got a lot more things involved with it that I don't think that the moderates are going to go for. They say that they want to see the bill being scored first before they give any type of support to it.
Right.
We see that a lot of the things that are in this bill, Senators Manchin and Sinema aren't for this at all. So I really don't think we're going to see a Build Back Better plan being passed. I think what we're going to see is an infrastructure bill, and that's it.
Yeah. Aaron, if we don't get that CBO score and they vote, Nancy Pelosi says there's going to be a vote on that thing next week, it would be completely unprecedented to not know the CBO score for a bill, especially the biggest spending bill in history, to have them go for a vote. That would be unprecedented.
Everything in this administration is unprecedented. We don't see one thing that's been locked up or protocol, and that's why we're in the terrible position that we're in. You look at Joe Biden, you look at Kamala, and you say, can things get any worse? And just when we think they can't, they do. And I think that that's why people are reacting so strongly when they're at the polls. And like we said, I saw in Virginia, things of that nature. And by the way, it's not just about our children's education. It's about the spending that's completely out of control.
Yeah.
It's that we are mocked and laughed at on an international stage. China is not afraid of us. Russia is not afraid of us. Our enemies are not afraid of us. America was once the greatest and strongest nation in the world. And now we are just looked at and mocked, sadly. So honestly, it's not just about this legislation. It's about everything that's going on in Washington. It's troubling.
That's a good point. Thank you. All right, panel, we'll pick this conversation back up top of the hour. Thank you, Aaron, Carl, Chris, Mercedes. We'll see you in just a little bit.